Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to... Hey, did you see this one? Oh, hi. Hello and welcome to a very special Saturday night edition of Hey, Did You See This One? We are talking about the horror movie. Calling it a horror movie is a stretch, especially this one. It's not...
What do you mean a stretch? This is very much a horror movie.
It's not really scary so much as it's a kind of a good window into what horror movies were like in the 80s, where they weren't scare you, stab people in the face constantly. We are going to do other movies where that happens probably, but this one specifically didn't really have that. This was more of I think it skews more comedy. Anyway, we'll talk about that and more when we get into the episode. As an
adult, yeah, but as a child, which this movie was designed for like 12 to 15-year-olds as like the primary audience, and then the adults that watch it are like, this is funny as heck.
Yeah.
But as if you're 11, you're probably going to be like, oh my god, Chucky is so scary.
So just before we say any more, I'm going to actually record the episode for once. You may notice that Kalen is not here yet. He is en route, I believe. He will join us once he's home. I am Jason. I will be hosting. I'm your illustrious host for this week. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Steven.
Hi, it's me, Steven.
If you are the other host, if you're watching the video version of this, which you probably are because I've never uploaded an audio version, the image that Steve has behind him, it was actually drawn by him for our Grimoire of Familiar Killers last year,
yeah. I drew one for each of the horror monsters that we did. Not my best work, but you can tell who it is. It's the good guy doll.
And that sort of leads us into what I want to say about what's happening for October is we're doing sequels. The sequels, if you were here last year and you saw what we did last year, we did the first movies in 4 different franchises: Child's Play, Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Nightmare on Elm Street. This year, we're going to do the sequels and see how they stack up. And I think that they will stack up because already this is an improvement on the first. The first Child's Play movie is great. I do like it a lot. However, I don't like the first Halloween movie. But the elements of Halloween I did like were where he's going around murdering, and I feel like the sequels will have a lot more of that because that's sort of what that movie is. This movie plays...
We don't need to talk about that movie yet.
Yeah,
we're talking about this movie.
Exactly.
This movie fucking rules.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say is this movie, they leaned into lots of different things, like the comedy aspects of how ridiculous Chucky is, how ridiculous he thinks his own self is being trapped in a body. They brought back a bunch of tropes from the first movie where he's like a complete dickhead to everybody, but he's especially misogynistic. We get a fuck you bitch. We get him calling women bitches. This movie has the girl who plays Kyle. She's from 90210, so we have a little bit of star power now. She would have, I think 90210 started in 91 or 92, so she goes on to be a pretty big television star. I looked at her, I can't remember her name, but I looked at her IMDb this afternoon, and she's still working. She's in the new Chucky show.
Playing the same character.
Which made me realize that Chucky and Cobra Kai are kind of similar rehashes where they take old characters and they're back in Chucky's life, kind of like how with Cobra Kai they keep bringing back the villains.
One of the thing is Don Mancini, the guy who wrote the first Chucky and the second Chucky and the third Chucky, also wrote every single Chucky and has had like a deep stake in this franchise since the beginning, and he just won't let it go, which is also probably for the better because he is like, it all must be uniform. There has to be some sort of continuity.
Right.
And he's an advocate for canon, which is like, I don't necessarily have to adhere to canon, but like he did it in such a way that he always references it from the first movie to the new TV show. Like it's all there in some way. And even if you have to let go of some things in order to embrace others, he's like completely fine with that as well. Like,
And
he's not a hard-nosed canon man.
honestly, that was super rare back then. And it was pretty rare up until the MCU popped off in the mid 2000s, and then now everything tries to have canon, even if like it's a movie that's clearly flops. They still set you up for a sequel, and they still put all this shit in the movie that you're gonna have to remember for the next one. And it's spilled over to TV a little bit. I've noticed where there's all those shows that are like Chicago Fire, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and they're all like they're a weird MCU universe. And I like that the Chucky mythos goes so deep and back so far, because if you look at, I know that the Friday the 13th movies do have like a common thread, but if you look at them, they're just like, oh, Jason's back and he's found a new group of kids to kill.
Yeah, that's not necessarily true. I feel like you don't know what you're talking about right now.
Okay.
Do you know that there are characters that come in and out of Jason for long periods of time?
Yeah, I know.
Tommy Jarvis, he's around.
Is that
a lot of the movies, man?
Is that what's his face? Corey Feldman.
Yeah, and then he comes back as an adult, and yeah, there's lots of stuff. There's lots of Jason lore that exists in the Friday the 13th movies, but the one thing in Chucky that is like leaps and bounds above something like Jason is that Chucky is the one through point. Yeah. They don't really focus on Jason as the through point for everything. Jason is just there. And then Tommy Jarvis is a person who's like, Jason fucked me up as a kid, and now I'm an adult, and now I have to fight Jason again. Whereas in the Chucky movies, it's like, I'm still trapped in this fucking doll's body, and I need to get out of here. They the way, Give me the power, I beg of you.
That's what I like about Chucky, too, because he doesn't feel like he's just a murderer on the loose. Like the rest of the three other killers that we're doing all kind of feel like that. Freddy Krueger is a little bit more of a Bugs Bunny kind of he likes to set up these hilarious murders and become inanimate objects and stuff. But Chucky is almost the main character of Child's Play. He's almost like he gets as much dialogue as any of the main, like Andy is a kid and he's a shitty main character, but he's just sort of the protagonist, and he needs an adult to help him for now until he grows up a bit. If Kyle wasn't around in this movie, Andy would have been possessed multiple times over.
That's true. Yeah,
she helps him out
because she had to go sneak out to smoke cigarettes or whatever. Yeah. She like comes in, and he's like tied up with skipping ropes. Yeah,
like, geez, Andy, how do you tie yourself up like that?
How did you do this? Yeah, and he's like, it wasn't me, it was Chucky. And they're like, we told you his name is Tommy or whatever.
It's annoying to me that Chucky only reveals himself to be a thing, like a person with sentience, right before he kills people. But that said, I'm pretty sure
you keep your cover, man.
I know, like, I get it, but it's kind of like a Toy Story. But the thing that I kept thinking about was like, people saw this doll kill people in the first movie, right?
Well, Andy did, but no, I think Andy's mom did, who is for some reason absent from this movie. But I feel like there's probably like a toss away line or something where it's like his mom went nuts or some shit, and like that she got locked away, and that's why he's in foster care. Because like, imagine she went up to the police and was like, the doll did it. The doll killed everybody. Like, that's obviously they're going to be like, anyway. Okay, whatever you say, lady, you're not allowed to have this son anymore. And you clearly pushed your friend out the window in the middle of the first movie.
Is there a point in this series where because even I watched that TV show with you, the first probably 6 or 7 episodes.
We watched a bunch of them, yeah.
And only a couple of the kids know that he's sentient.
Except for Andy, who is in that show as well.
Right.
Like, it keeps like cutting back to him, and he's got like a Chucky head in like a closet that he like gives cigarettes to, and he's like, all right, Andy, we gotta go find my other forces or whatever. And you're like, okay, Chucky. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I thought from some of the images I saw of this, like the big conclusion takes place in the Good Guys toy factory. Mm-hmm. But I think I saw a trailer, or I saw like some pictures when I was just like looking for this movie, and I saw the assembly line of good guy dolls, and I was like, oh fuck, is this the Army of Chucky's movie? But I don't think that happens till much later in the series.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm going to spoil.
That's the face of somebody.
Alerts?
That's the face of somebody who's about to tell us the whole story.
I know. I love Chucky.
I know you
do. So the beginning of the third movie is like they melt down everything from the end of the second movie, and they just put it back into the vat of plastic to keep making more dolls. But like as it's going over and melting, like all this blood just like dribbles into this big vat of like melted plastic, and you're like, ding ding ding, ding 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 ding. That's his blood. That's Charles Lee Ray's blood going into there. So like
extremely haunted blood.
And so like I thought the third movie was going to be like a million Chuckies, but it's still just one Chucky, and they don't really go into that until only a few years ago in our own actual timeline, which is like I think it's called the Cult of Chucky.
Yeah, that's the one with the asylum too, right?
Yeah, and there's like multiple, and he's like, "Ade way into you body, I'm gonna copy my brain," and he like basically makes several Chucky copies of himself, and then he figures out how to do that to the main character from a couple of the other Chucky movies, who's actually played by Brad Dourif's daughter.
His actual daughter.
Voice of Chucky, is like his daughter is playing her, and then in the show that we were watching, like she plays young Charles Lee Ray, like in drag. Basically, she's like presenting as a man and just like playing her dad as like the serial killer, and they do the voiceover of Brad Dourif with it's wild. It's so good, man. It's such a nice like. The Chucky franchise is extremely friendly in terms of like queer representation, but also just like making you feel like it like normalizes everything with it also still being sort of strange and like odd, which is, you know, not to say that those things are strange, but like it presents it to you as if it's not, and you watch it in a way that it isn't. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And that's why it's kind of weird that Chucky is so misogynistic, but it also feels like it helps you feel like this character is shitty, where that kind of misogyny in the 80s was just the main character, the hero is going around.
Right, but like, so what I mean to say is that like that character is still so hard-edged in terms of his like misogyny and like even like homophobia and stuff, but then like in the show, the new show, like the main character is like a gay teenage boy.
Yep.
And like I think he even at one point asks like Chucky like, well, I'm gay. Like, is that an issue for you? And Chucky's like,
whatever.
No, I'm a murderer. I'm not a monster.
I'm not a
monster. Like, I'm okay with that. It's fine. What do you mean?
Before we go any further into our analysis. Wow.
Yes.
I've had one sip of beer. Let's do a little. Where did we first? Encounter this movie, and when Kalen comes, no matter, oh my god, he's just en route now. He's like, let's go at 8:30. Anyway, whatever, who cares? We're here, get used to it. When he comes on, I'll just have him run down really quickly. It might kind of break the show's flow, but him just jumping into the episode is going to break the flow anyway. I'll go first because mine is very simple. When I was a kid, the cover of this movie is the one where it says Child's Play 2 with a blood 2, and it's the one where he's got the giant scissors and there's the man in the box.
And it's scary, yeah. It's the Jack in the Box.
The Jack in the Box, and he's going to cut the spring on the Jack in the Box. The man in the box,
it's terrifying.
The classic toy. It scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
Weirdly enough, I think if this movie was on TV and some of the like, there's only one really bad like shocking death in this one, in my opinion, and then some other shocking little things. I think if this was edited for TV, I would have had no problem watching it, because Chucky isn't really scary to me and hasn't really ever been scary. We've talked about this on the show. It's the threat.
And I think that I've said that Chucky is the scariest to me out of all of them.
The threat of seeing a doll stab somebody in the face with a knife is what always made me afraid of Chucky. As an adult, these movies are very tame compared to the horror movies that would come out over the next 15 years. Like if you put this movie up against something like Hostel, or it's like the Saw movies after Saw 1. Saw 1 is a classic 80s horror movie, and it's not that bad. There's a couple little things in it that are gross, but like after that it becomes murder or torture porn, right? So this movie, I think, is very, like, if you were going to get into horror, the 4 movies we watched last year and this movie, great entryways to horror, because they haven't tried to outdo themselves yet. And even this movie, they're not trying to...
They're also sort of like the first pages to like a large book of like what horror is going to become, right?
Exactly.
Like that's sort of what they are.
So what the way that I see this movie is almost not so much a sequel, but almost a reboot of the first movie. Like it's let's take, by comparison, almost an indie flick and Hollywoodize it, is how I kind of noticed the difference between the two movies. Because this movie has a lot of weird camera shots. They try a lot of new stuff. It's very... You
say weird? I think you meant to say good.
Good camera angles. Good camera angles. But what I'm saying is, like, it's very shiny compared to the first one. It takes place in the daytime a lot, where there's only one real, like, daytime scene in the first one, where, like, the kids go into the house in the daytime on the subway.
The first one has a lot. It's also, the first one's like winter. It's like Christmassy.
The first one's Christmassy and wintry. You get that kind of icky, sick to your stomach winter feeling from the first one. This one is a lot more like, I don't know, it's more cheery in a way, even though it's a fucking 80s horror movie. But anyway, in summation, I watched this movie literally today, and I love it.
I'm glad you love it, because it's one of the... So I've seen all the Chucky movies multiple times, and it's hard to rank them because there's so many, and you sort of, like, after a while you build out this sort of like lore in your brain, right, where you're like, the Chucky series is maybe the best out of all of them because it has the most robust storytelling.
It's
and there
also
is
accessible
actually
as fuck compared to like a Friday the 13th.
It is. Well, I mean, Friday the 13th is also extremely accessible because you don't really have to watch any other movie to get what's going on. Whereas this one, maybe that's a thing. Like, you can watch the second one without watching the first one and realize what's going on because they kind of throw it at you over. And his name's Charles Lee Ray. He's a murderer. And like they do give you that detail. But if you were to hop into like The Bride of Chucky without seeing any Chucky movie, you'd be like, what the fuck is going on here? But like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's maybe a testament to how strong Chucky is as a character. And I know this is meant to be my moment where I tell you the first time that I saw Chucky 2, but like you, I was terrified of the cover of all the Chucky movies. Like, I don't know what possessed me as a kid walking through like a video rental store to walk through the horror aisle.
I did the horror section
every every time. And I was like, oh.
I'll never watch any of these movies.
And I was just getting scared of the covers, and I'd be like, I gotta go to the animation section and get like the Land Before Time 6 that just came out or whatever.
The Return of Small Munch or whatever the fucking animal's name is.
And I, for a very long time, was terrified of like all of these, all of the Grimoire of Familiar Killers. Like, they were all scary to me as a kid. Jason was the least scary to me as a kid because he was just like a zombie or whatever it was. But Chucky was the most scary because I have toys in my house that could come alive and kill me. I don't have a giant hockey player that lives next door that's going to murder me or whatever. And Freddy Krueger is a dream demon and all my dreams are nice. So I didn't start watching these movies until I was in middle school and early high school. And then I started getting really into like all horror stuff because I was like, this is actually a different type of movie watching that I've never experienced and I was too scared to experience. I remember like there was a few things that I watched way too early. I've talked about it before. Like I watched The Evil Dead when I was like 6. And I watched The Shining when I was like 8, and like watched these movies that
RoboCop
I really
when I was 8, I think is what made me never want to watch a horror
and
movie.
Like, you know what? That's completely fair because it is super graphic and scary, and there's scary people in it. But once you break this sort of like barrier that you get through at an age where you're like, you start to realize that things are actually funny and not
and also
scary.
it's not like these horror movies aren't an hour and a half of fucking violent gore. Like there's
No.
a story in there. That's why I need people to watch the original Saw movie, because the first Saw movie is a cool like cop drama with this murderer that's like trapping people and killing them. And you know, you don't even see Jigsaw in the first movie. I don't think, or if you do, he's just like a face on a screen. Now
He shows up at the end and he's like, dun 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 dun, goodbye.
Now
Now
Jigsaw, they're doing all these prequels and they're just gross movies.
Jason, come on, you're summarizing the last 20 years of fucking Saw movies. Chill out.
Sorry, I'm very mad that people think that all the Saw movies are like unwatchable torture porn, because I really enjoy the first Saw movie.
Who thinks that? I don't think a lot of people
The internet.
think that.
I don't know.
The whole internet.
The whole
thinks
internet
that.
is a collective unconscious.
So anyway, I watched the sequel to Chucky very close to watching the first Chucky, which was like, I watched the first Chucky and I was like, this is great. This is like a murderer, like a serial killer who puts himself into a doll to escape death. And now he's trying to escape the doll because
you went through a real chunky phase last October, as I recall.
Well, I have also, like, I've always kind of liked Chucky, like, but I also was the most scared of Chucky. I think that's kind of like what I'm trying to say, is that like Chucky scared me the most when I was a kid. I remember very vividly, I may have told this story last year, where they had this like radio clip on the radio during Halloween season, and it would play around like 7 at night, and it was advertising a TV channel or something. And it was like, we're playing all the horror movies this October. Every Friday night, we're playing Chucky, Jason, Freddy. And like they would play them all. And then they would play this one clip of like, hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?
Yeah.
And they would like play his voice. And I would like get actually scared of just the voice on the radio.
Was that
like
was that the preview? Every year they would do previews for when Shudder first came out, and it was a channel, not a streaming service.
This is when I was like in middle school. This is not a couple years ago.
No, in middle school, Shudder was just a channel, like the comedy channel, but it was on cable. Like you had to pay
it was like a local channel.
And I remember at Halloween time, if you watched like Showcase when I was in like high school or they would show that the same, like, here's all the movies that we're playing through October, and it would show that clip of, hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?
And then he falls and goes under the couch. Yeah, but like this was just audio on the radio.
Oh,
like,
on
it was
the
just radio.
Sorry, I missed that.
And I would get like freaked out just by the audio of it. Like I'd be in the car and my dad would be driving me to school, and that would play, and I'd be like, and then I'd be like scared, like I'd be walking around in everyday life freaked out that Chucky was coming for me. But anyway, to say when my first time watching this is difficult to say, and I definitely did not appreciate it as much as I did rewatching it a couple days ago. And even just every time I watch through these movies, like there are some that are just like leagues above the others, and this one is one of them, man. This one is like actually well shot, well directed. The music is amazing, the animatronics are great. Like everything about this movie is like special in terms of like why Chucky still exists. If this movie did not do as well as it did, or at least present as well as it did in terms of like what they can do with a little murderous doll, the rest of the Chucky series probably wouldn't exist. Like this is probably the reason that this went forward as far as it has and still continues to do.
It's also such a, like, the animatronics in this movie are probably for the time like top notch. It's a very cheaply made movie, but some of the stuff is not cheap. Like the Chucky doll, it's 1990. The Chucky doll looks even better than the first. The whole factory part at the end, that like set piece that they built, that like it's like the assembly line, but it's in a nightmare assembly line. If one little thing gets tweaked,
it's like maximalist, like crazy. It's like a Willy Wonka style, like
Like
Tim Burton-esque. Like it's colorful and there's like nobody in there except for one guy. Like
one guy, and
yeah.
the kid, like I knew that somebody was gonna get murdered by that thing that pops the eyeballs in.
Oh, of course,
from the
it's
beginning.
So gruesome. It's so. It's like
they focus on this. This movie is a movie where I don't know if this happens in all of them. I don't recall if this happened in the first one, but if the Chekhov's gun thing happens almost every scene where you see something happen, you see a thing, they focus on it for a second, and you're like, that's going to be involved in a murder, or that's going to be what murders. And that eyeball machine, right at the beginning, Chucky gets his eyes put in.
Yeah.
So let's just start. I'll start from the top. So basically, we there's the opening credits. They're shaving all of the I don't know how they got this doll back to the factory, but
they explain it.
They're shaving
it's
off
because so the way they got the doll back is because the family, Andy's family, claimed that the doll was defective and it like did a bunch of crazy shit. Right, and they're like, it murdered people, and they're like, no, apparently it was just like, the voice box was wrong or whatever.
The voice cassette was fucked up.
Yeah, they acquiesced the doll. They fucking annexed it from the police, and we're like, well, we need to go do some tests on it. So they have it because of that, because it was involved with a murder investigation.
So we get this great scene of them shaving the melted skin plastic.
Yeah, and cleaning the tongue and everything.
Kind of horrific.
It's scary. It's scary.
He's got human teeth. Underneath he's got a chrome skull, like he's just the Terminator. And then they pop on some new parts. They make sure the batteries go in, and there's that scene where they show the batteries, and you're like, oh, there was no batteries in there, better put batteries in.
The one thing that I was like, Andy's smart, he checked for the batteries, but at the same time I was watching this with friends, and all of my friends were like, why didn't he take the batteries out? And I was like, holy fuck, you're right. And I never thought about that before. He should have took the batteries out.
Yeah,
as like a test.
That's how I reacted to it. I was like, well, take them out. You can't tell if he's alive if the batteries are in. Anyway, so the first time that we see this eyeball punching machine, this puts the eyeballs. It's like a special machine.
That's the last thing because they clean them forever, and then it's like doing everything, and that's like the last thing that happens.
But what's weird is the eyeball things come down, and they keep stopping, almost like a force is keeping them from popping the eyeballs in. They finally get popped in, and then we have a murder chunk. But then murder Chucky they pick him up, and then they put him down, and then he's suddenly laying by the door, as I recall.
Oh no! Okay, so what happens is they that guy, the guy that you're saying, the businessman who's here to perform some sort of PR interference or whatever, is we got the doll, and the doll's over here, let's go look at the doll. And then the guy who's the CEO, the old man, is like, all right, let's go. And they go in the room, and they're about to try and turn him on or something, and they put the eyeballs, that's you're right, the eyeballs are going in, and then it gets stuck, and then it electrocutes both of these men, right. And they're and that's the first bad 80s electricity
I like that effect.
Sort of effect. Yeah, I like that effect.
It looks
too.
Like the Palpatine lightning from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a Ghostbusters. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's fine. And you're not sure if they die, but then it cuts, and they're being pulled out on stretchers, and they have bags over there, so they're completely dead. And so the doll is by the door, and the CEO has dust and glass on his shoulders, and he's like, we need to cover this up, bury it deep. And then he's like, what do you want me to do with the doll? And he's like, shove it up your ass. Yeah. It leaves.
So the guy who plays the exec is his name's Greg German, and you may recognize him from, he was on Ally McBeal in the 90s, but he also pops up in every show.
As the same character that he's playing.
The same dickhead character.
He plays a corporate shill.
Yeah, he's kind of a poor man's Greg Kinnear. He's still working to this day too. He was was on
playing the same character
as well. Yeah,
he was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine recently as the same character.
Yeah, he's.
Remember that episode where they have to go and solve a crime on a crime show or whatever?
Yeah. Also, later in the movie, I want to just point this out before I forget, but there's Andy's teacher in his class.
Yeah,
is the woman who's also from Everything. Her name's Beth Grant, but she. She plays notably Dwight's babysitter on The Office, even though he's a
or also
man.
you could consider that his teacher, because she plays shitty teachers in like a lot of stuff. Like she's like a typecast shitty teacher. Yeah.
And that there's a thread in horror movies that a lot of these actors would go on to be on television shows and sitcoms.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, people kind of like get worried about that. That's almost like a blessing.
That's an old way.
Unless you're gonna be like a George Clooney or like a Julianne Stiles or like an Olivia Wilde. Why not just be Julianne Stiles?
No, that's an old way of thinking, though, because of legacy television and like HBO and stuff. Now a lot of people want to do TV because it's a lot easier on your budget, a lot easier on your
but what I'm saying is that like there's nothing wrong with being typecast if you're perfect for that shit. Right, and if you can convincingly play that without it taking people out of it. So like she is playing a teacher in this, right? And she has played a teacher in a million other things. And just because she played a teacher in Chucky doesn't mean that her playing a teacher in a very serious drama or in The Office, where she's technically playing sort of the same type. She's playing a babysitter, which is like in the Schrute family, you would assume is basically like a teacher, right? Yeah. Yep. Like it's the same sort of realm of roles. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can play dramatic roles, you can play funny roles, you can play horror movie roles, and it all sort of like works. And that all that does is like secured like job security for your entire life. Like
I was an actor, I would absolutely be fine with being typecast. It's the people
Oh my god, me too.
It's the people who want to grow beyond that. Like you're saying, like Tom Hanks probably didn't want to be stuck playing quirky sitcom guy for his whole career. He wanted to win Oscars, and you can't win an Oscar if you're a typecast as
the teacher who gets murdered by a yardstick and
bar redneck number 4.
Yeah. But if you're okay with playing bar redneck number 4 forever, then you're gonna have job security forever.
Do you know what kind of character I would like to be? I would like to be one of those typecast extras who's in everything. Like that extra from Community, who has like one line per season, who you see in other shows.
Pop.
No, not that dude.
You don't want to be Magnitude.
Not Magnitude. The big guy with glasses, and he ends up having like the relationship with the other.
Yeah, the guy. Yeah.
But he's in so many things. Like he's in the background of
sings
like,
Ava Maria at the funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Harmon probably likes actors like that, and was like, you know what? Let's give this guy some lines because he's doing some great background stuff. That's what I would want to do.
This isn't over. It's still happening. It's happening right now. Yeah. What was his name? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so let's see here. So we now go to Andy, who's in therapy. His mom is out of the picture because she's probably in a mental institution.
I would like to say immediately that it's not that the actress didn't want to come back. Like they could have had Andy's mom be in this movie.
I think your hypothesis is right, though. It makes way more sense that she was like, the doll was killing people, and they were like, sure, come with me.
You go to hell.
Put this jacket on that we can tie.
But also, what I'm saying is that it's not that they couldn't get the actress back to be in the movie, because the actress was married to the lead puppeteer of this movie. Like she was on set often and always, like she was there. So like she could have put on a fucking crazy person wig and been like, Andy! Like she was there every day almost.
It's interesting that I wonder if there's cutting room floor scenes of her that just
I'd be interested to know that as well, but like as far as I know, they were just like, no, we cannot have that character in the movie because it'd be too detrimental to the story that we're telling, I guess. But
I did want to say though that like this movie's length, I like shorter movies, like 80-minute movies, and this was perfect. But I was having such a good time watching a Chucky movie, and it was like a Saturday afternoon. I had nowhere to be, nothing going on. I wasn't like watching it in chunks on my lunch breaks like I do during the week when we have a Wednesday show. I just sat and watched a whole movie, and I was like, I could have dealt with 15 more minutes of that.
Yeah.
As long as it's like you don't get almost don't get enough Chucky being like, "Fuck you, bitch."
I agree. I love Chucky so much, and I love how rude he is. Like, he's such a rude character, and he's not rude in the same way that Freddy Krueger is, where Freddy is just like, I'm being rude because I can be rude. Like, Chucky's like, fuck you, you think that you got it better than me? Like, he actually is like,
well, he's a person.
He's upset that other people are human beings.
And
like
I'm
a doll, man. Fuck you.
Like you said, there's stakes. Like he doesn't, I forget. It's probably the shaman in the first one explained that like if you spend too much time as a doll, you'll become a human.
Yeah, there is a scene in the first movie where he's like literally standing in a window well, being like, "Are you telling me if I stay in this form for too long, I'm gonna be stuck this way?" And then he like fucking kills him. He's like, "You fucker!"
Fucker.
Like, he kills the guy just for giving him that information.
I mean, that's Charles Ray Lee. That's his name, right?
Charles Lee Ray.
Charles Lee Ray. He seems like when he was a human, he would fly off the handle and murder.
He was like a strangler. He was like labeled as a strangler.
He was a serial killer.
He was a serial killer, yeah. So like, I was trying to talk to you guys throughout the week when I watched it. I was like, the one thing that I like about Chucky is that he's kind of a normal guy. And then as I typed that, I was like, I mean, not normal. Like, he's like he's not a normal guy.
He's
but
normal
like,
in a Jeffrey Dahmer kind of a way. He's normal in a Ted Bundy sort of way.
Imagine you were a serial killer and you got trapped in the body of a doll and you just wanted to get back into the body of a regular body.
No, you wanted to get back into the body of a child so you can live a whole life as a strangler.
That's true. He does want to like put himself into the body of a kid so that he can specifically live a whole
and
life.
He's linked. He's like linked to Andy forever. I think I wonder if the movies explore that a little bit more. Why Andy specifically? Because Andy owned that toy. Maybe there's something to that. So he's like cosmically linked to Andy forever. I wonder if there's any of the movies explore that.
Honestly, like, that's one thing that I don't know about.
Like, why doesn't he just go after some kid that like doesn't know that Chucky exists?
Well, in the third movie he does. He goes after another kid.
Yeah, I remember seeing bits from that movie. It takes place like in a city, right? Like, it's all like very in
the third movie, Andy gets put into military school, and Chucky goes to the military school to try and get Andy again, but then he ends up like deciding that he's gonna grab this other kid instead.
Okay.
And he keeps trying to get this one kid, and then Andy's like whole goal throughout the movie is to stop Chucky from getting this other kid. So he becomes sort of like the like the adult characters in these movies are like the teenage characters in these movies.
Who are like,
he becomes that role.
Okay,
yeah.
so the teenagers are like sort of the heroes.
In the first movie, there's no teenagers, which I
know, and that's a little bit different. Andy just stops the doll himself, right? Even though he's like 6.
Yeah.
Or the mom. But like
Andy's pretty dope as a kid, and also, man, like, I gotta say, like, the kid is a good actor. He was a good actor in the first movie, and he's just as good in this movie. Like,
he plays that like he plays off the doll did it, and I believe the kid. Obviously, in universe adults are like, that's ridiculous, but I'm like, that kid has seen some shit. You should look at his eyes when he's telling you that he saw a doll murder 10 people.
There's one moment in this movie that I was like, this is good. It's not good like on a grand scheme of things, but it's good in this movie, which is like when he's in the basement doing laundry with Kyle and she's smoking, and she asks him to hold the cigarette for a second while she like goes. And he just smokes it. Yeah. And like, that to me is like, oh, like, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, he's not scared to try it or anything, because he is like, I've seen my babysitter get pushed out of a window. I've seen cops get shot in the head. I've burnt a demon doll. And like, he's just like, fuck it. Like, smokes it, and he's like fucking 8.
Later in
You're
the
like,
movie,
oh my god.
Chucky even says to him, he's like, what? You act like you ain't seen a dead body before.
Yeah, exactly.
And I laughed out loud.
It's true, yeah, it's true.
And then I realized that I think Eminem says that in a song, and it might be directly related to this.
Maybe Eminem loves Chunky.
He definitely loves Chunky. He had like a photo shoot in the '90s of him, like not dressed like Chucky, but dressed like a doll with a knife. Also, he was like the innovator of murder rap, so
True.
So Andy gets picked up by this. This always drives me nuts in movies where there will be like foster parents who take in Andy.
Yeah.
And it seems to be always the dad who's like, I fucking hate this shit. Why you always gotta bring these kids into my life? And it's like, why are you married to like the woman clearly wants to help these kids, but the Phil is his name. He's very skeptical of everything. He's like, I don't want this kid. And they immediately show him like a figurine that's been passed down from generation to generation. And then
be careful with that. Everything in here is fragile. Yeah.
Chucky breaks it almost immediately.
But how does he break it?
I probably just pushed it over.
No, Jason, come on, it's very important.
It's
important to the story.
Did they even? I thought they didn't explain it.
Okay, so they take Andy to the bedroom, and he's looking around. And he's excited because he's like, I haven't had a room in a long time. And he opens the closet, and then
Chucky
falls out. A Chucky doll falls out, but it's not the evil Chucky that has a Charles Lee Ray soul inside of it. It's just a Chucky doll, which why the fuck did these people not get rid of that doll if they knew that he was traumatized by a fucking doll?
All right, Kaylin's coming in though.
All right. And they don't even get rid of it. They just put it in a different room. They keep moving
it around the house.
Yeah.
Every time he finds the doll, they're like, ugh.
But what happens is the Charles Lee Ray doll finds the Chucky doll, and he takes that little thing that he told them to be careful about. The dad said, be careful, this thing's fragile, and he beats in the Chucky doll's face with it and breaks the Chucky doll's face with it, and then he takes that Chucky doll and he buries it underneath the swing set in the backyard.
Oh, I didn't notice. You said he beat up the Chucky doll with the...
He doesn't just beat it up, he breaks its face and the...
Okay, I completely missed that it was the figurine. I thought he was punching it.
No, he was hitting it with the figurine. And then he buries the Chucky doll in the backyard. Underneath the swing set.
Looks like old Kaylin here is live from the road.
Looks like he's jerking off. Oh, no, he's driving a car.
Bonjour.
I thought he was like, yeah.
So, what's up, man?
I'm moments away, and figured this might be funny.
I mean, we had said earlier that it would be funny if you just went live from the bathroom of Yuck Yucks or wherever you were.
Yeah. You were doing a double date where you were having to
could I do that? I would have done that. Corey suggested that.
Well...
looks like Corey is also a funny comedian.
Maybe he could be on the episode sometime. How long are you going to be till you're home?
I'm like 10 minutes.
Okay. Why don't you just pop back on when you're settled?
Okay.
All right, cool.
Bye.
Chunky 2, it's a sequel to Chunky 1. It's the Chunky.
Is it closing?
It's the Chunky man with a Chunky plan.
I don't think it's closed.
It's not. I can just kick you out if you want.
Okay.
Chunky plan with the Chunky man.
Teen girl, very hot. That's what I wrote. Hot squarehead. I love her squarehead.
Oh, I can't remove him.
Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle. She's got a squarehead.
I can't remove him, or else it won't let me.
I'm gonna go fill my wine. I'll be right back.
You gotta close the app on your phone, my man.
I tried to do that. Okay, here I come. It's coming. 1 second. A little swivel. Never mind. I won't say that. I feel like oh, okay. How do you close it? Swipe up, right?
I don't know. I'm on a computer.
Kaylin, what? Jason, you should be able to boot him from that.
No, but okay. I tried to, and it was like, he won't be able to rejoin this meeting. And also it was like,
Oh.
report to
Like,
Zoom?
Would you like to report him forever? Okay, so anyway, yeah, the dad is obviously the worst character for sure, but the mom is also shitty as well, right? Like, she has like this weird sort of picture perfect way of dealing with children, which is like a very old way, right? Like, everything about her whole house is like grandmotherish, and like she's like sews quilts and
when
shit.
he
Like,
walks into that house and he's looking around at the place, and there's fucking knickknacks and tchotchkes everywhere, and this fucking walls are pink and baby blue.
yeah.
I was like, I thought that she was going to be a psycho, but she's just like what you said. She's just more so
like a weird old timey mom, which is like doesn't exist even in this time. I bet people were like, "What the fuck?" But one thing that I will add to what you just said is like when he walks in, don't you just love how it's like always this low angle of every, like you're not just looking through Chucky's eyes, but you're looking through Andy's eyes, and like this whole movie is almost filmed in like a weird low angle. Like it's like it almost feels like a Kubrick movie, you know? You're just like, wow, they really thought about the camera placement, and it should always be either super overhead where everything is wide and huge, or like tiny vision where everything is wide and huge, and like they rarely go in between that. It's so well shot. It's beautifully shot, man. I would even go as far to say beautifully shot.
Yeah. I did think that the first one had a really cool, unique look to it, like we were talking about, but this one just blows that one out of the water in so many ways. There was another really cool shot where, like, towards the end they're trying to escape, and they're going up that, like, that conveyor belt that, like, with the rollies, with the rollers, and they're like climbing up it, and he slips and he starts rolling down, and the camera is clearly like in his arm, like right here, and you see his face like up close, and it felt like really tense, and it felt like you were there with him, which is a good way to purvey what's happening in a shot like that. Because
there's also like a weird thing that I think that only people of our generation can actually connect to within that moment of those rollies, which is like maybe even specifically Canadian children, I don't know, but you know the beer store, right? When like your parents would return empties and shit, did you ever get sat on top of that thing? And you know that feeling of the rollies, right?
Yeah. And even I feel
like
grocery
didn't you
stores...
like while you're watching that, didn't you like recall that feeling of the rollies?
The feeling
I'm like, I know what that feels like.
I was also like, how the fuck are they climbing up that? I guess if you
grab onto
it, it doesn't roll.
You can,
And also if you're an adult, but he's a kid, so he rolls. But what I think of is back in the day, grocery stores used to have, I don't know if they even still have these, but you could get your groceries inside, and then there would be a guy outside. They'd roll them out. They'd roll them out in those like bins, and then they would load your car with the groceries. I don't think that service like exists anymore.
No,
because just fucking bring your own groceries to your car.
Yeah, and nowadays, like, you go to a grocery store and you don't even have to deal with like a checkout person. You just go to like the bloop, 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 and some guys
and
making sure
on that note, people. There's two kinds of frames of mind of negativity towards those. On the one hand, it kind of takes away jobs from people. On the other hand, people are like, I go to the grocery store so you can bag I'm not going to bag my own. And it's both kind of, it's the young person's view of it versus the boomer.
Yeah.
My thing is I don't want to talk to anybody. I usually go to the grocery store stoned, and I don't want to deal with people.
Me too. It's not that I'm stoned, it's just that I don't want to talk to people.
But also
at all.
But also I usually when I go smoke a joint, when I go for a walk and blaze one for the nation, I'm like, no, I'll go to the grocery store and get some snacks.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't like if I'm in a situation where I have forgotten my debit card for whatever reason and I only have cash, I'm like, I actually have a panic attack. I'm like, I have to interact with somebody. Oh God, no. I'll even like leave my bag and then just yell, I'll be right back, can you guys watch this? And then I'll go back up and get my debit card and come back down and do it, because I'd rather just pay for my own shit and not have to ever talk to anybody ever.
Yeah, I'm the same way. In a pinch, I'll go to the checkout. Like, there's a No Frills by my work where they don't have the self service, but honestly, like, why don't you have the self serve? Anyway, there are more things that happen.
Yes.
Let's see. They almost crash into a toy truck. Oh yeah, they're driving home. The toy truck takes a left, and they almost crash into it. And he sees the Buddy doll on the side, which is like obviously
Ding, ding, ding.
foreshadowing.
It's re-traumatizing.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the other part about that doll being there. Like, the kid's not gonna stop talking. Like, if this is a movie where the kid is traumatized by seeing a murder happen, and he looks like I don't know how to make this into the doll didn't actually do it. It's all inside the kid's head. But if there is some sort of twist where it is all in the kid's head, having you should pre-screen your home for a Chucky doll or a Tommy doll.
Like, get rid of all Chucky dolls. Like, make sure there's none in there.
So we'll move. We talked about him getting to the house. He goes up to the bedroom. And
let me just say that there was a funny part while I was watching this with Brian and Ryan and my friend Enrique, and like Brian kept being like, "There's so many clowns in this house. Why do they have so many clowns? Don't they know that he's traumatized?" I'm like, Chucky's not a clown.
No, Chucky's a doll, not a clown.
He's just like a little boy.
But
and Brian was like, "I think he's a clown."
I think he's a clown. So, hot take coming from friend of the show, Brian.
Brian,
so. Yeah, this room is stacked to the ceiling with now that I think about it, I think you're right about her being a weird, like, old-timey mom, because she's like, "Don't you love blue? Of course you love blue. You're
it's
a boy.
your favorite color.
It's your favorite color, I bet, because you're a boy. Also, look at all the toys and all of the cars and trucks and guns I got you because
this is also like the first moment that you get to see the weird shape of this house, which is nonsensical. Like, the whole house is not shaped properly. It doesn't look like a regular house would be shaped. So
no, it looks like it was filmed in like
Tim Burton's butthole.
No, that hallway where like all the doors are. I would notice that like the crown molding on the ground and like the way that things are shaped, it looked more like an apartment, like they were just filming an apartment building or a halfway house or something. Like, you're right. Now that I think about it, it didn't look like the way that the downstairs looks like the layout of a house. It's like a front room and
but the basement and that staircase.
The staircase
in the basement.
Yeah.
You don't remember that fucking twisted ass staircase? Where he's like, "Look at Chucky down there," and then like there's like a perfect spotlight on Chucky, and the staircase is like super angular, like it looks like a Tim Burton Nightmare Before Christmas style staircase.
Or when
like
Kevin McAllister's in the basement in the first
it's like it is like a child's nightmare, right? Like, so like when they first bring him to his room, the room seems like there should be a natural shape to it with like a nice warm light coming in to make it feel welcoming, but it's not. It's a black window with like a harsh light on it, and the bed is like angled sort of like half at us, and you look at the walls and you realize that it's not a square room. It's like this weird room that has like several angles to it, and the bed is just like angled at the door, and like it looks like a weird twisted drawing, and you're like, this doesn't seem right. But I mean, maybe that was just me. You didn't notice this? Come on, you didn't notice that this bedroom was like a nightmare bedroom when he's first being brought in there? I'm like, ugh.
The bedroom looked fine.
Terrifying. Like the bed frame in The Simpsons where it's like Homer makes that bed frame and it's like a clown and it's like, like it's like that. Like the whole bedroom is like that.
The bedroom didn't do that for me. It was the hallway from the top of the stairs with all the rooms. Like they go into Kyle's room and she's just in there smoking a cigarette. It's just nothing in the room but her and a cigarette and her suitcase. There's also the subplot with her is that she's been living there for 3 weeks. She's an out of control teen. She's been bounced around from house to house for her whole life, and she's just one of those teenagers you see in movies who like has never had a home. You find out later that she got put up for foster care when she was 3. Andy wants to know if he's like, do you remember your mom? That's coming up here in a minute. We'll talk about it. But she's just like, I thought she was going to be a complete piece of shit to Andy, but she ends up being
so nice.
cool immediately.
She's so nice,
she kind of takes him under her wing and is kind of a big sister character to Andy.
Kind of like a superpower of the movie, which is like they want her to seem shitty, but she's not ever shitty to Andy. No. The only shitty thing that she ever does is when he says Chucky did this when he's tied up, and she kind of laughs a little bit.
She's just
like
laughing.
That's
yeah.
She's like, what? Like, but it's more like a what the fuck is he talking? I don't know what he's talking about. But like that's literally the only time that she ever does something like that, right?
She even seems cool with the mom, you know. Yeah. Like she seems cool with the foster parents for the most part. I felt that there was a camaraderie a bit between her and the mom in a scene coming up. So the next bit that we go into is Chucky's gonna get his second mark of the movie, and the executive, I think his name's Morris or Moron.
His name's More Ass.
His name's Morris, right? His name's Matson. What a fucking just Matson. No first name, no second name. Just I'm Matson. He's
just tossing the doll.
He's got the Chucky doll. Yeah, it's raining. The Chucky doll's hair is all fucking matted and gross. Like the doll's clearly been like, this sucks. Yeah. And he tries to put him in the trunk. The trunk's full. He's like slamming. He's slamming the trunk on Chucky. Yeah. And he's like, that's not gonna work. And he whips him into the back seat. And at one point, I think when he's slamming Chucky's head in the door, you hear him groan. You hear Chucky go, "Argh."
You do hear like a, yeah, but I don't know if that's the guy doing this or it's probably Chucky.
It sounded like Brad.
Fuck. Yeah.
It sounded like Brad Dourif.
Dourif. Yeah.
So then he gets a call on his car phone.
Yeah, that was so. We were also when we were watching this, we were playing like an '80s drinking game where I'm like, anytime something super '80s-ish happens, you drink a little bit. Anytime Chucky swears, you drink a little bit, and anytime there was like a bunch of rules, but anytime there was something super '80s, and like that was like a hello with like the chord in a car, you're like, oh my god. That is 80s.
So he has to basically pick up some vodka for somebody on the phone.
Yeah, I assume he's going. It's like a Michael Scott situation where he's going to go see Jan or something. Yeah. Like he's got some lady.
She's like, bring the vodka. Wear 2 condoms.
And then he can't. That was the second 80s.
The other 80s thing
moment is the guy's like, no fucking credit cards. Like,
he goes to the liquor store and he tries to pay with a gold card. The guy's like, no credit cards. And I was wondering, like that would never happen now. But you have to remember that in the 80s, when you wanted to use a credit card, you had to pull out that machine, put the credit card in like the charcoal paper, and get an imprint of it. And I think you had to call it in. Like I think you had to call a place.
I have used one of those in my life, which I thought was wild because there were still, when I first was in retail, there was still a very brief overlay where there were still credit cards that could not be scanned, or people would refuse to give you their number and you would have to do that. But I was like, every time I'd be like, but I'm going to do this thing. And I'm still getting the number when I do, like, that's giving me the number. And they're like, I don't care, do it. And I was okay. I would give them their receipt and I'll be like, I still have your number right here. You could have just told it to me and I could have put it in the computer and everything would have been fine, you psychopath. But it's like old people, right? Like an old person.
They don't understand. Kaylin, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Thanks for having me. Swell, thank you.
What's up? Are you here?
Yeah.
Cool. So we did our first time seeing the movie earlier. Do you want to tell us about yours?
No, we can just keep going from where we're going.
No, tell the people about the first time you saw this movie. I said it early in the show that once you came on, I was gonna just stop and we'll hear from you.
This just did. Several minutes ago. Oh yeah, so my first time seeing this movie was in the height of COVID, when I decided to go back, revisit movies that I hadn't seen, and it was also around October, Halloween time, and so I was like, ooh, might as well check out like some of the cool killers, right? So this was amongst them.
Killers.
And it is a very
Killers.
it is a good movie, like, in all honesty, like, it's without it even like necessarily being like a slasher kind of thing, but like it's a slasher, but it's like it's entertaining to watch. It's got some humor and stuff. Anyway, go on.
Cool. So we're at the point in the movie where Andy went home with the family. Chucky is now with the executive guy. He's picking up the vodka. So he gets back in his car, and the car alarm starts going off. He goes back, gets in the car, and then Chucky has a gun. He's like, keep driving.
Whoa, freak, drive this way. Come on now. And
did any of you ask yourselves, where did he get the gun?
Well, I was thinking
it's not a real gun,
Yeah,
you ding-dongs. It's a fucking
thinking-
water
No,
gun.
we find out later, though, but in the moment.
Yes, I
in
did
that
say
moment,
to
I was
myself.
like, it's a water gun, probably, because that guy's car is full of toys. The
Well,
whole
but
car
here-
is full of toys.
Here's the thing that I was thinking of. That is another '80s moment, and I noticed this when they go into Andy's room, and this is why I didn't think of it when he held a gun to his head. But up until I would say 1999, you didn't have to have those red tips on the end of guns. You could make realistic looking toy guns. And that assault rifle in Andy's toy box was off-putting to me. Obviously I knew it was fake, and obviously I knew it was a toy gun, but I was like, wow.
I think that any gun that isn't like a space gun or something is kind of weird. Like if somebody has like a realistic looking, even like a BB gun. Like I remember I got into like BB gun shit a few years ago, where
Airsoft?
I bought a BB gun, not airsoft, just like actual BB guns, like old timey BB guns. And I bought one. I bought like a pink one because I wanted it to look like, I didn't want it to look like a gun. I wanted it to look like a toy because that's what it is. And we would take it to the cottage, and I got really good at shooting it. And I was like, this is great. This is so fun. And we would like set up targets and shoot them and stuff. And it was fun. But at the same time, if that looked real, anybody driving by would be like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like, these guys are shooting guns. And like, we weren't shooting guns. We were shooting toys at pop cans and eggs and stuff. So
Eggs?
I think, yeah, I bought a carton of eggs, and I shot. Well, we put the eggs as far away. We put the cans close, and we put other stuff a little bit further, and then we put the eggs as far away as we could. And the eggs were like the hard to hit targets, right? Like they were like the valuable, the valuable targets. But I can't imagine like having a gun.
What about eating them?
What about eating the eggs?
Yeah.
Eggs are fine. I eat eggs. But we bought this specific carton of eggs to shoot.
Did you drain the egg out of it and then shoot the shell?
No, that would take away the impact of the exploding. Of
You want to see you want to see it splatter like a human head.
I've never seen that.
Anyway, Kaylin, no, like we shot the eggs. It was fine. Don't worry about it.
But then, basically, he's like, "Don't hurt me, don't hurt me," and he's like, and he squirts him with find out his water. It's like,
bang, you're dead.
You're dead. And then he's like, "Oh, thank God!" I think she looks back. I think Chucky's gone. But then it cuts back to him looking forward, and then he fucking plastic bags him to death.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wow."
I was also like in that moment. I was like, I kind of wish that Chucky didn't kill that guy, so that guy would be like a crazy person wandering around being like, listen, the Chucky is real. Like he would have to be like wandering around the movie
throughout the next couple movies. He's just he's just around.
Like cool. Donald Pleasance from the Halloween series, where he's like, evil has gone from this place. Remember, like when he's just running. We'll see in the second one. Like the second Halloween takes place seconds after the first Halloween.
Well, this movie takes place like we were talking about this in the chat, but this movie takes place like
the
next
next
day.
year or something.
Yeah, even though the kid is like several years older.
Yeah. No, it seemed like they had the melted doll, so it couldn't have been that long later. Did they say in the movie?
Well, I don't think they ever say when or how long, but like I mean to say the kid is clearly like several years older than he was in the first movie.
I imagine when this movie came out, it was
I think he was better in the first.
I think he was better in the first one.
I think he was pretty good in this too, man. The first movie, there's that one scene where he is like absolutely petrified and he's like crying and shit, and I was like, this kid is killing this. I remember talking about it last year, and I was like, this kid is killing his acting right now. And in this movie, he still kind of killed his acting. Like he wasn't. There's no moment where I'm like, I don't believe this kid.
Yeah.
There's no moment where he's like weeping and shit either. But like he killed it in the first one, and he's supposed to be like, fuck, like
yeah,
he's a Chucky. Like he's like
hardened,
fight Chucky. Like I
he's
believe
a hardened
him.
Veteran of turmoil and horrible things happening to him. We were talking about earlier him taking the cigarette and immediately taking a drag off of it.
Yeah, like she asks him to hold his cigarette, and
he's like,
instead of him like looking at it and being like, I shouldn't do this, he just immediately hoots off the cigarette, and you're like, okay, this kid is now a badass where he doesn't give a shit about anything. He'll smoke cigarettes immediately.
Also in that scene, Andy makes a really bad joke. It's really weird, like back and forth between the two of them, because he sits down, she puts him up, and he says, do you want me to hear you say my name backwards? And then he turns around and says his name. And then she's like, hold this cigarette, and then he takes a drag of it, and then they start bonding.
That was hilarious, by the way.
That joke?
Yeah.
I audibly groaned, but also I made a note.
Oh, what?
I made a note. It was such a weird, like, chaotic, like, moment where it felt like almost like an improv scene or something. So yeah, Kyle and Andy bond at that point. And then Andy goes upstairs and he overhears the adults talking about the trauma from the doll that he had to endure. And
which means they knew about it and they still didn't get rid of that fucking doll.
Yeah.
Maybe they wanted it as like a soothing tool or something. Like maybe we'll be able to like calm him down by introducing the doll to him or something. But like they're not therapists. They're just weird foster people.
True,
right?
true.
Like,
did you know? Around this part too, I think they show the doll and the doll goes, "Hi, I'm Tommy," because
its eyes like Tommy.
Because now it's Chucky who has replaced the other doll by beating its face in with a tchotchke.
Yeah.
And then when he says, "Hi, I'm Tommy," Andy's like, "Wait a second." And that's when he checks. He checks the first doll for batteries. He doesn't check this one.
No, he checks Chucky for batteries.
He checks Chucky. Okay,
this
so
is after, this is
He clearly suspects this is not the doll.
But he sees that this is when everybody in the room that I was watching it with, when he checks the batteries, and he's just like, and he closes it up. Everybody in the room was like, "Take the batteries out! Rip the batteries out!" What the fuck?
Because that's like, how do you know? So he takes the doll into the basement, and the parents, the adults, see him walk by with the doll, and they're like shocked, like, "What's he doing?" And then Chucky ties up Andy. Oh yeah, so I guess
this is the first day.
Yeah.
The way.
We fast forward to
give me the power, I beg of you.
I beg of you. So right as he's doing that, Kyle comes home, sneaking back in because she got grounded for the tchotchke thing along with Andy. The dad was like,
Chucky says something like, "All right, well, keep it to yourself, kid. I'm gonna kill you later." And then he just like falls on the ground or some shit.
Does the Toy Story?
Yeah.
Fall down. Yeah. So the parents come in. And they're like, "Why are you tied up?" He's like, "The doll tried to do it." And they're like,
but then they blame her.
He's like, "Why are you tying up your little brother?"
Even though he's like, Chucky did it. Chucky did it. That was
Yeah.
sorry. This was the other drinking game we did. Every time someone doesn't believe somebody about Chucky, like every time somebody was like, "What do you mean?" We were like, "Well, yeah."
So you were blackout
Nobody
drunk by
believed.
the time the movie was
Oh
over?
God, yeah. This is wonderful that you're recapping the whole movie for me because we were drunk by the end. But yeah, they think that Kyle did it, and Kyle's like, "I didn't do anything," and they like try and punish both of them, and I'm like, these people don't know how to both interact with or punish children. It's terrible.
So the next day is the first day of school. We see Kyle and Andy walking together, talking about the situation. He's worried.
Get lost, microchip.
Yeah. Andy's worried that Chucky is going to find him.
I also wrote that down
at school and murder him.
Did you guys notice that like Andy is being like absolutely exemplary of like what a perfect student is meant to be the entire time? Like he's paying attention. The kid flicks him and he's like, "Get lost, microchip," and like everything. Even at the end of that moment, he takes all the toys and he's about to put the toys away. And then that's when, there's a scene before this where Chucky's like, "Where is it? Where is it? Ah." And then it like cuts, and then like she's going through them and she's like, and it just says, "Fuck you, bitch." Like right on the is it a test? What even was that? It was like match an animal to another animal test or something.
It was just like busy work for fucking grade 2, just stuff.
Color in the elephant to look like an elephant.
That's when I noticed that it's Dwight's babysitter from The Office, and I wrote, "Ha ha 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 ha." The paper says "fuck you, bitch." Amazing. He naturally gets detention.
This is a thing that I'm like, hold on. I have made t-shirt designs in my past to try and like make ends meet here and there. Why the fuck is that not a t-shirt? Like the test that Andy made with "fuck you, bitch" on it. Why is that not a t-shirt? I feel like a lot of people would probably wear that, right?
Yeah, I'd wear that.
Right?
It's a great shirt. It's a great juxtaposition between a kid's.
Let's go.
It's a great juxtaposition between a kid's fucking like worksheet and "fuck you, bitch"
and a terrible old woman.
Yeah. So he gets detention for that. She doesn't even question it. She's like,
imagine if he still gets 100% on it though.
Yeah, he still. Well, all the answers were correct, so you still get 100%, but
he still wrote "fuck you,"
he still wrote
so
"fuck
he
you,
needs
bitch,"
to get detention.
Even though the kid's clearly being picked on, so this teacher is negligent, showing negligent.
Well,
behavior.
she's an old, like she's like, "I'll slap your wrist if you write with your left hand," or whatever.
She locks him in the room from the outside. So she locks.
Yes, and she also locks Chucky in the closet.
Yeah,
because she's like, "Don't even think about it," and she grabs Chucky and throws him in the closet. Which, how the fuck did Chucky get to school? By the way, he followed, obviously. But
they show how he gets
to the
there.
Bus.
Yeah, he jumps up under when the bus is driving away.
Oh, right, and it's like, I forgot about the wheel well. Yeah, I forgot about that. You're right.
And this is when the best line in the movie, in my opinion, happens, where he's locked in the closet and
Andy, come on, let me out of here! I promise I won't kill anybody.
And then he goes, "Let me out, you little dick! Let me the fuck out!
Let me the fuck out of here!" He like actually freaks out. That's one of my. I wrote like over and over again. Chucky goes from normal to insane so fast, like so quickly. Like every time he's trying to just be like, "Come on, man, we just need to talk about this." You little dick! Yeah. I need to go now, you fucking dick! He just like loses his mind.
Steve, is Danny home right now?
No.
Okay.
You think I'd be doing this right now?
I was just going to say, are they just in the other room listening to you go
hear, like,
from
police, like...
And then I thought that this scene in this movie was very good. "I'll fucking kill you, you little dick." See, I can't even yell it. Because my wife's upstairs sleeping. So he sneaks out the window. The teacher comes back because they think she hears a commotion. Is what sort of her face acting led me to believe. She goes and checks the closet. because she's like, obviously this kid is hiding in the
She
closet.
says, Andy, get out of here. Andy, where are you? And
And
she
we-
pulls one of those light switches that the light automatically is giving you those nice horror movie shadows.
But we get that.
And you're
We
like,
get
oh,
the
God,
music,
yeah.
the like tiki 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 tiki
Ding,
music
ding,
comes
ding,
in,
ding.
and every
Yeah.
time she moves something, it's like a almost jump scare
Ring. Yeah.
until he finally appears and jams like
Well,
a bike
she
pump
picks
in
up
her.
this. I assume it's the same volleyball that he was hitting the. Remember when he's hitting the fence with?
Yeah.
You know, to build tension because he's like all fucked up, and she puts it up, and then all of a sudden out comes a like a.
It's like a
You
bike
don't know
pump.
what it is, and then you realize he's like, and he's filling her chest with air. It's a pump. It's an air pump.
Some sort of bike pump, and then he
It's a
beats
pump
her.
for the balls. What do you mean an air pump?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
all
that
the
makes way
balls
more
in the
sense.
room, you
Sorry,
ding dong.
I'm a
It's
ding
some
dong.
sort of bike pump.
It's
No,
a bike pump. I guess you could
balls.
pump up a bike's tires with it. Anyway, that's not even the. I'm burying the lead. He beats her to death with a meter stick, just mercilessly. And you.
I mean, it's America, so it's probably a yard.
Didn't you do that though?
Pardon?
Can you beat
Oh, the
somebody with a
United
yardstick?
You could absolutely kill somebody with a yardstick if you're a demon doll.
Also, when he comes out and he's like, and he's walking, and it's like one of the first scenes where he's like fully walking as an animatronic, and he has the stick in his hand, and then it like curls, and he puts his hand out, and and it makes this like crazy like sound in his hand, and I think he says, "You've been very naughty, Mrs. Kettlebell." He like, and then just you see from out the window of just like the yardstick coming down over and over again. Oh man, what a good moment. Also, Kaylin, what were you saying? What did you ask? Ding 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 ding.
What are you
You've been
looking
very
at?
bad, Mrs. Kettlebell.
I don't recall.
Ah, come
What are
on.
you looking at?
Anyway, yeah.
What am I looking at?
That's probably it's maybe one of the like most memorable moments of the movie, right? Like I when I was going into this movie, there were like 3 scenes that I remembered very clearly in my head, and this is one of them when he's like killing her with the meter stick.
Oh yeah, is that possible? Is that what I asked?
That is what you asked.
To kill someone with a meter stick?
Yeah.
I
And
think
then
so.
I
yeah.
said, yes, if you're a demon doll.
But also, as a human, you could kill someone with a meter stick if you tried hard enough.
Absolutely.
But also, he hit her in the chest with like a air pump, so she was probably already fucked up. Like he probably like did some sort of damage to her internally.
And then they don't.
That actress plays a good bitchy person.
Oh, I don't think that she's always a bitchy person. I think that sometimes she's just like a nice sort of like kind of character, you know.
But she did a good
She's
job.
not always
I
a
was
bitch.
mad at her. I was mad at her for the way she treated our hero.
Yeah,
Our boy
but were
Andy.
you mad at her in in the office when she was like, "We weren't invited"?
No, I actually that episode.
I used to be his babysitter, and then I was his lover.
Yeah, that episode is. People like to talk about Scott's Tots as being the most cringy, but the dinner party, come on. When Jim is like, oh, I gotta go, my apartment's flooding, and then Pam's like, if
She's like, you can always get it. You can get new things. You can't get a new party.
Yeah. It's like, fuck. I had an out. Pam should have been like, save yourself, because it just goes downhill from there. When when Jan's dancing to fucking the song, and
she grabs Jim and
it
is like,
keeps trying to grab. He's like, no. Fuck, what a good show. Not to the point that my whole identity is The Office, though, because those people. Ooh.
I hope not.
Andy tries to tell the adults, and
Andy Bernard?
Phil. I'm moving on. And
Obviously, no one believes him.
pardon?
Obviously, no one believes him. What a tall tale.
Yeah, classic. Nobody believes Andy. And Phil's like, so earlier we skipped over this part, but Phil's like, I'm putting this doll in the basement. It's caused enough problems in my home. I don't know why
he doesn't just put it in there. He throws it
like
down the
whips
stairs.
it down the stairs.
Yeah, yeah.
At this point, you gotta wonder why is
but
this doll
also
still
like
in
the
this
one
household?
thing about in Chucky movies that you also have to kind of gloss over is the fact that that teacher died.
Yeah,
and
they don't.
No one
nobody
ever
talked
brings it
about
up again.
Nobody mentioned it. For a
never,
second.
never is it brought up again.
Well, not who we're following. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, it's a horror movie about a killer doll. You have to sometimes like take a step back and be like, let's just forget that this happened, because if it becomes part of the story, then you have a whole crock of shit you have to deal with. Whereas if you just forget about it, then who cares? One way to do it would have been like it was a long weekend, and it was the end of the long weekend, and she died, and no one's gonna discover her body until like Tuesday.
Yeah, it was Friday. This happened at Friday at 3:30, and then,
and nobody went into the room to find her corpse.
So the doll's still in the basement. Andy hears the parents fighting about him. Kyle comes in and consoles. This is when I point out in my notes that they're having a good big sister little brother relationship. Then Andy gets up in the middle of the night after that, and he gets an electric knife usually used for cutting roast beef or turkey. He goes into the basement and he's gonna finish off Chucky. They have a little bit of a scuffle. And Phil wakes up, or hasn't gone to bed yet. He's in bed, and he's like, I feel like I hear something. And he goes downstairs, and as he's coming
Phil
down,
in full pajamas. He's wearing full pajamas.
Both of the parents are wearing pajamas. It's pretty fucking hilarious. But he's walking down the stairs, like, yelling at Andy, who's holding the fucking knife. He's like, put the knife down. He puts the knife down, and he's like, now I've had enough of this doll nonsense. And Chucky pokes him in the foot with like one of those pokers or he like hooks his foot.
No, it is a full-on harpoon, like a whale harpoon. Like it's like I don't understand.
I think it was for a fireplace. There's a poker for a
No,
fireplace.
it has ropes around it. It is like a fucking like killing Moby Dick style. Like it's huge. It is like a full harpoon.
Anyway,
like,
he hooks his foot and Phil falls off, and this is in my opinion, the most brutal death of the movie, because he like lands on his neck, and it like clearly is.
Well, no, he doesn't. He falls and he's hanging, and then Chucky goes up to his face and he says, "How's it hanging, Phil?" And then he fucking lets him go, and he cracks his neck. Chucky gives him a full face of Chucky before he lets him die, which is great.
Which is, so Phil knows that Chucky is a doll who is sentient, and then he dies. And then all the shit hits the fan. The wife comes down. She's losing her mind. She's like, "Get away from me, Andy!" So Andy's now in the doghouse.
But this is also when Kyle starts to maybe believe Andy, because she's like, "Wait, what?" And like things are not adding up.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way that Andy caused the dad to fall through the railing.
Yeah.
And land on his head. Anyway. Yeah.
There's also like other small things that she's been seeing throughout. Like she's not stupid, right? Which is also like a beautiful thing in this movie, is that she's not an idiot character who has to be shown something overblown. Like she's slowly kind of piecing things together the entire time, where she's like, all right, maybe my little adopted foster brother is actually being haunted by a crazy murderer doll. Like maybe this is real. Yeah.
Could be. That could be very well what's happening here, and it is. So Andy has to go back to the foster place. Kyle gets Chucky from the basement, and in classic Chucky fashion throws him in a garbage can, which I don't know if it happens in the first movie, but it definitely happens in the show, where he ends up in a garbage can. I think that might be that's a good trope, throwing this doll in the trash and then him getting so mad that he's thrown in the trash over and over.
You open it up and you're like, oh, he's not there, but really Chucky's like, fucking always in the trash can.
In the goddamn garbage.
Damn it.
So that's when she throws him in the trash. She goes and sits on that swing from earlier in the movie. And the old Chucky doll, the Tommy doll, is buried right beneath. She's like kicking in the dirt and like pulls the doll out, and that's when she's like, oh shit, and then she goes back and checks for the doll.
There is also a part earlier in the movie where the two of them are playing in that swing, and it keeps zooming in slowly to Chucky, and Chucky's like looking at the dirt.
Looking at the dirt.
Because he's like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't have buried it.
They also
there.
during that sequence, they show a flashback of him burying the doll. So.
No, yeah, what I mean to say is like, I like the fact that Chucky buried it there, but at the same time, Chucky even is like, maybe I should have buried it somewhere deeper. But also, Chucky in his brain is probably like, I buried it there because I wanted somebody to find it. Like, I wanted somebody to find it and be like, like, he's a crazy serial killer, right? Like, he wants people to find these things to get spooked.
Kaylin, you falling asleep, buddy? What's going on?
That was one of my favorite shots when it's like looking up from the grave and he's there. I was just telling you, pardon?
I didn't say anything.
Sorry, I thought.
Kaylin, I think you're like in a slight delay mode because you keep sort of like reacting slowly.
I was just telling you guys, I was just about to try to add on to, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think you're on a delay, man.
Mr. Simpson had the best death, is what I wrote. He did die very well.
Do you want to?
Andy is right.
Sorry, one sec, Steve. Do you want to just leave and come back in? Are you? What connection on your phone are you connected to?
1 second.
Yarp. Chucky is human. He is scared. I did write that. I wrote that. How do we talk about how Chucky is human and he is scared?
Well, Chucky throughout this movie is like his stakes are very high for him, and everybody else are like stakes aren't that high. Everybody else is like, please
they're
stop
still high for
stabbing
people
me.
who don't want to die. Yeah, they're like, I just don't want to die. Where Chucky's like, if I don't kill you, then I'm gonna have to deal with this later.
All right, let's make sure that he's good. All right, are you hearing this in real time?
Well, it's kind of hard to say yes
you
or no
sound
to
way
that.
better than you did.
Can always, if I'm responding to what I thought was real time before.
I know, but now are we having a conversation with one another?
Well, you're directing your conversation towards me for me to respond to, so yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's way better than before, because before I could actively see, I would stop talking, and then I would see you do listening eyes moments later. You know what I mean? So that's what was happening before.
You were on a delay.
Absolutely correct, because you know why? I was on the shitty Wi-Fi instead of the data.
Exactly. Data. Because my name is Data.
Hello, my name is Data.
We're back, folks.
Why are you called Data? Because my name is Data.
Data was cool.
I think the best part in the whole movie is when he's walking out and he slaps the yardstick in his hand. That's maybe the best part in the whole movie, right?
What about the part when the guy gets the toy eyes in his face?
That's also very good. But when he's walking out and he's like, "You've been very bad, Mrs. Kettlebell," and he like slaps it into his hand, it's maybe the best.
You know what?
Moment.
He's probably got childhood issues.
I would say he is a strangler.
Are you talking about Charles Lee Ray? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably. He probably does.
He probably hates being in a little baby toy thing that much more because of it.
Oh yeah.
Kaylin, underneath my next note, I wrote eyeball death equals good. It does. It does equal good.
I liked it.
All right. I'm going to go fill my glass, but I think we're getting close to the end here.
So what?
Did Jason also leave?
Yeah, I did. It's all good. I'm back.
I guess it's up to me to entertain you. I'm the scissors.
Are you good?
Yeah.
It seemed like you're falling asleep there. I hope it wasn't my talking wasn't boring you.
No.
No?
I was there's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of feelings being had.
Why are you having feelings?
I don't think now's the time to talk about those feelings.
Okay. Cool. We can, before we go, are you still down to do some Fortnite after this?
Yeah. But this is all about this. We don't need to talk about other shit with this shit. This
No,
shit's about this shit.
I know, it's all good. I wanted to make sure that you're good. I'm asking you if you're good. Okay, cool. Yeah, so...
I have feelings, sir. I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry, man.
We all have feelings, guys.
We all have feelings.
Everybody has feelings.
We'll have a nice chat after the show's done. So she goes out for a smoke, finds the doll, blah blah blah. Then Kyle goes back into the house. So she throws Chucky in the garbage, and 5 minutes elapse, and she goes back into the house, and she's like walking around the dark house, like every little noise freaks her out. She goes upstairs, and I thought they were going to do more with the sewing machine, because the sewing machine is shown very...
She found the other Chucky, though. You have to specify that.
Yeah, we talked about that right before Kaylin left and came back.
All right, okay.
So she's skulking around the house.
That's why she's scared. She's not scared because she threw it out and it's gone. She's scared because she found the other one and realized that, like...
Yeah, but she goes back and checks.
Right.
She checks the trash, and Chucky's gone.
Yeah, so she finds the old Chucky, goes to the trash, finds that Chucky.
We already did that.
I know, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that it's not stupid that she's scared. She's scared for a very good reason. She's scared.
So we go upstairs, blah blah blah. I want to get this out because this drove me nuts. The way that this movie did Chekhov's gun so many times, where you show a thing and then it has payoff. They show her sewing. They show the mom sewing early in the movie, and I was like, "Oh fuck, her hand is going through that or something, or her face." Yeah. And I was still in the mode that was like, "This is the sequel. It's gonna be gruesome." But really, it looks like she just had her throat slit.
Yeah. What I wrote down was, "Mom should have been sewn to death."
Yeah.
Like somehow. Just like a lot of sewing. Like she should have had so much sewing on her. Yeah, I agree. It looks like she just had like. Her mouth was tied and her... Yeah, I agree.
It looked
she
like
should have had like sewing marks all over her.
That would have been awesome. Yeah. Especially since in the later Chucky movies, Chucky has a sewn back together persona.
Yeah.
It would have been a cool callback.
No, you're right. Yeah, she should have been sewn the fuck
imagine if he got broken and she fixed him.
That would have been great too.
Yeah.
Or if he had like a little rip on his clothes from him getting thrown in the basement, and he's like, "I'm gonna fix this doll," and then as she's being fixed, he like grabs her and like pulls her head under the
or like her finger, like her thumb, and like puts her thumb in, and she's like, "Ah!" and then like
because Chucky always does some like maniacal shit to the person and then just kills them pretty handily. Like he's. It's never really that elaborate, but it's always like he does some weird thing.
Well, that's the thing is like he's like
some little torture move.
He's like a guy. Yeah. He's like a guy. He's just a regular guy.
Is he a guy?
The thing about Chucky he's not a regular guy. He's a murderer guy, but like he's not gonna like do something wild. He's just gonna be like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." Kill you. That's his whole deal.
He gets angrier and angrier too.
Yeah.
So at this point, she's losing her mind. They have a scuffle. There's a knife. She has a knife, but the knife ends up in Chucky's hands. He gets her into the car, and they're going to go somewhere. We don't know yet. Meanwhile, at the orphanage, or whatever, the alarm goes off. Right, I thought it was Chucky already there, but we find out, so it's kind of going back and forth to like the kids evacuating the orphanage and Chucky like holding a knife to Kyle to make her drive somewhere. But then it turns out there's also a funny scene where like wait, does that happen later?
This is the end of this movie. It's all so weird and scrupulous and strange. where like there's so much shit happening that you're like, wait, what?
Right. No, sorry. I fast forward a bit to the thing where she like pulls the newspaper truck over, but that happens a little bit later.
But in between the moment that you're talking about now and when they get to the factory, there's like so much weird shit that happens that you're like, it's almost a little bit hard to retain because there's too much happening, and it's like she knows what's happening.
Oh, sorry. I know what happened that confused me. Something does happen while they're driving. The cop pulls them over, remember? And the cop's like, well, you got a doll there? And the doll's like, yeah, man, I'm a doll. I'm a talking doll.
No, he's like, don't say anything or else I'll fucking kill you. And he like puts the knife down next to his leg.
And then she's like, yeah, it's a talking doll. And then he starts bleeding out of his nose because that's a thing that keeps happening in this movie to indicate he's becoming
she's like,
human.
did you ever like see one of those dolls that pisses itself? This one bleeds.
And the cop's like, okay, well, you keep it slow it up.
But the thing is that it's a doll. Like, it's not like he wouldn't have any reason to not think that was true because it is a doll.
It is just a doll. So I thought that, yeah. Oh, he goes, you goddamn women drivers.
It's so stupid though too. Like it actually is just like what can we make him say that is rude?
Fuck you, bitch.
Yeah.
You
goddamn women drivers as he goes through the
drivers
window.
and he flies through the window.
But also, like,
shield.
would he have enough mass to break the window? Like,
I
feel
thought
like he's a
about
doll.
that. I thought about that for way too long. I was like,
I don't think they're going fast enough.
No. And he breaks through it like so perfectly.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing. So they show up. That's after too, I think. No, because they roll up there. How does he? She shows up.
They crash the car, and then it's like
right, and then he tries to hit
puts
her.
the knife into and he's like, "Take me to the fucking orphanage,"
right.
And then they somehow get the fire alarm to go off, and everyone's going out.
Yeah, they're leaving. They find Andy.
Yeah.
They go back out.
And then all the fire trucks start showing up, and he gets Andy into the back of like a newspaper
truck that's just like filled to the top with newspapers.
And it's open for some reason. Like, oh god! And he's like, Ade, Due, Dembala, give me the power, I beg of you. And they're like driving off. And she gets into another car and is following them. And he drives them back to... No, wait. What? Oh, no. She's driving after that truck. She forces that truck off the road. Right. And it's like a guy who's like, what the fuck?
I just want to...
like, grabs her.
Before we move on to the next part, I wanted to point something out here that kind of stuck with me, too. And so when the fire... there's a commotion, right? But before that, it's pretty quiet in the streets. So there had to be a point where there's just people out milling around with the alarm going off. But off to the side, like not too far, is just a car that's up on the curb with a fucking giant hole in the windshield and the doors open. And nobody thought to be like, what the hell? What the hell is going on with that car? Anyway, it's a movie.
The end of this movie, like, you have to not think too hard about
That's true.
it because it's like they were just trying to get to the factory fight.
Is that stuff acid, or is it the gel that makes the parts? Who knows? Why does
there
it burn
are
the
several
floor?
things that happen in a row that are very hard to follow and comprehend, but they get to the good guy factory.
Let's get to the good guy factory too, because
what is important. Yeah.
So the problem, I didn't really take many more notes beyond this because it's just a lot of. It's just.
I think that all my notes that I took throughout are still something that you can attribute to this last scene as well. Like most of my notes about camera angles and music and acting and all of it still applies to this last scene.
This sequence is very good.
It's great, man. Yeah. This is such a good moment in this movie. It's so good.
So essentially what happens is they end up in the good boy factory where the
good guy
where the good guy factory where the Chunky dolls are made. And I will always call him Chunky because of you, Steve, and that's your fault.
Sorry.
Basically, there's a sequence here where Chucky's they're playing cat and mouse, right? And Chucky's trying to murder them, and they're trying to escape, right? One little thing happens, and the whole factory gets messed up and starts
I mean, the main thing that happens is that he gets there first with Andy, right? Like Chucky gets there first, and he fucking lies Andy down, and he's like, he puts his hand on his head, and he has the knife, and he says, "Ade the way, Dambala, give me the power, I beg of you," and like he starts to do the voodoo curse, and he gets through all of it, and he has his head in the air, his little puppet head, and then it goes down to Andy, who's asleep, and Andy's eyes open, and he looks up to Chucky, and then you see a little bit of blood drip onto Andy's face, and then it goes up to Chucky, and Chucky puts his hand down, and then it drips into his hand and goes back up, and Chucky's nose is bleeding, and he's like, "No! No! 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 No!"
Yeah.
And he like does like a crazy scream, and it's like, this is fucking great. Like, a lot of horror movies do not ever make you feel like you understand why this villain is doing what they're doing, but Chucky, you know exactly what he's trying to do, and he failed. He fucking failed, man.
You also get a great moment shortly after this. They're escaping through like this grate, like this fence grate, and he gets his hand stuck, and then he's so filled with rage and just wants to murder them as brutally as possible that he pulls and pulls and pulls, and his hand comes off, and you realize that he's got fucking meat arms.
No,
now.
he doesn't realize that.
We realize
experiencing it.
We realize,
but he's like screaming like, "Ah!"
Yeah. And it's
and
like it's got that little
like,
squirt, that little squirt of blood comes out, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then he gets that knife from the previous scene, and he pulls the handle off, and he jams it in his fucking arm and tapes it up, and now he's got.
But he puts it in like one of those those wedge things, like to close it,
like
so that he can and then he like tapes it up with like packing tape, and just like he pulls it out, and he's like, "I hate children." Starts to like run after them. So good, man.
Yeah. So Chucky kills a factory worker by putting him in the eye machine. That's what Kaylin brought up earlier. The ultimate Chekhov's gun for this movie, because that eye thing is in like the first scene of the movie. And then a psycho-looking nightmare Chucky comes out with his fucking arm.
I wish that was the boss. I wish that was like the final boss of this movie. The Akira monster Chucky.
Before
the Akira monster Chucky is kind of the final boss.
Yeah.
No. Not the one that comes out with all the legs and arms sticking out.
That
you
thing.
Want it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That would have been cool.
You know what? Because you saw that come out. Yeah, you saw all the legs come out, and like I've seen this movie several times, and I was like, does he come out with legs and arms? And like like nothing came out, and it was like his bottom half.
No, they showed
and
that
then he comes out on the little platform, and he's like, "Ah!"
Well, they showed that nightmare doll to indicate that if you go into that machine, it's malfunctioning. Some shit's gonna happen. So they end up trapping him in that machine. He gets severed at the waist, and then he starts coming after them on that wheelie with the knife hand, which was fucking great. And then, so throughout this scene, they keep accidentally standing underneath this thing that's dripping. That's why I can't figure out, based on what happens here, if the stuff that's dripping out is some sort of acid or if it's the melted down.
Plastic. Isn't that like
Plastic.
latex or rubber or what?
It's plastic. It's like liquid plastic.
But what I was wondering is, if it's just liquid plastic, when it hits the ground, why was it? It was
because visually it looks more interesting.
I know, I get that, and it makes sense that it wasn't melting the ground; it was just sizzling when it hit the ground to indicate that it was hot. I thought it was an acid of some sort. Either way, Chucky was going to get this shit all over him because of Chekhov's gun thing.
Because of Chucky's gun.
Yeah, because of Chekhov's gun. So anyway, he's rolling towards them. Andy remembers that there's this goo. This latex stuff, he sprays him with it. He becomes this like gnarled monster, and through all of this, there's like a air hose on the ground that Kyle jams in his mouth, and we get a great.
Remind me of Fat Cartman.
Well, I mean, hold on.
Who?
The goo goes all over him first, and he gets like buried under it, and then he comes up and he's got like this nasty, like he looks like a gross like tenderly baby, right? Like he's coming at them like and like one of his eyes is like melted closed, and that's when she grabs the hose and I think when she shoves
like
it in
Quado from
yes,
Total
it
Recall.
looks like a Quado, and like, well, also, just so you know, the guy who made Quado is the same guy that made Chucky, and that's why they kind of look a little bit similar. But it goes in his mouth. He closes down on it, and like his mouth seems to like melt on it, right? Like it's because it's like drying plastic, and he starts to inflate, and you guys can
and he
take
pops,
it from there.
he explodes, great head explosion, and it reminded me of Big Trouble in Little China. It reminded me of Scanners when the guy's head explodes. But there's another movie where the guy's head like inflates and explodes. Some other
Weird Science.
Is it Weird Science?
Well, when the brother gets like into like a weird blobby thing.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, and then as they're leaving the factory after this horrible thing goes, and she's like, okay, or Andy's like, okay, let's go home,
yeah.
and Kyle's like, where is home? And then credits start rolling.
No, Andy says that.
Yeah,
Andy says,
where's home?
Yeah,
I have no idea. And that's the end. So, let's go into our final thoughts, and then let's play some Fork Knife.
Yes.
So,
Do the viewers get to see?
Yeah, we're gonna go live on TikTok. No, we're gonna go live on Twitch. I'll be the cameraman if you guys want, unless you guys want to be the cameraman.
I feel like you are in the zone to do it.
Okay. So Kaylin, since you came into the episode a little late, why don't you give us your final thoughts on the movie?
Absolutely. At the beginning of the movie, I thought of going to the dentist. Let's see. He looks scarier without eyes. Oh, when the guy's going to his car in the rain and the umbrella is like useless. Reminds me of like your classic Nova Scotia umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, that's pretty funny for anyone anywhere, right? When it zips off, right? He's like, God damn it, let's go with it.
But like, I feel like Nova Scotia or like Halifax, like I know like whenever there's like a rainstorm, there's always like those like umbrellas like off to the side of the sidewalk or like in the garbage can, just like
right, yeah, broken umbrellas, people abandon them. Yeah,
we have the classic sideways rain, as we're known.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to dismount. Continue.
No, we're still riding.
Keep going.
My final thought is also a little bit of intro because I missed it. Sorry. Thank you everyone for your patience. My apologies, and appreciate it. This was a lovely round two of our original October lineup, getting us ready for the spooky season, up in the value, up in the entertainment, and I give it a dope ass pair of overalls with a striped shirt.
All right.
It's the best.
Excellent.
It's the best rating for anything I've ever heard. I give it a pair of overalls and a striped shirt. All right.
Dope ass overalls, though.
Dope ass overalls.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you, Kaylin. Steve, why don't you go next, and then I'll take us home. All the way home again.
Oh, wait 1 second. No title shout out. No title shout out.
No, I don't think they're going to be.
Yeah,
like,
no
"It's
one said
Child's
this
Play."
is Chucky's Tools.
It's
Child's Play.
Child's
Nothing
Play.
but Child's Play. Too. I think that this movie is a classic. I hate to steal from you, Jason, but you did say this in our private chat that this is an example of a movie that 100% excels where the first movie failed, maybe, or at least took what the first movie was trying to be and achieved. And they have all the lockings and trappings of having to be a sequel, but like you can watch this movie without watching the first one, and you'll still kind of understand. You don't actually have to watch the first one where he's like, "How they do it, mala." Like, you don't have to watch that to know what's going on in this movie. And I think that, like, from within seconds of the movie, you realize that it's a fresh coat of paint, literally. Like, it's scraping off Chucky and painting him.
Sure.
They put little things down and spray paint his eyebrows on and like clean up his mouth and his lips and stuff, and it's great. It also does so much more with the music and the cinematography. The original theme that they made from the first one is taken and played throughout in different ways to make you feel like you're meant to realize that Chucky is watching this scene. If there's somebody watching somebody else and you hear like ding 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 ding, you're like, oh, that Chucky is there somewhere in the room understanding what's happening here. The movie is good. It is a very, very good movie. It's better than the first one. I will say it's better than the first one, for sure. 100%. If I had to give it a rating, I would say that it is you walking through a Blockbuster and walking by all these haunting covers of movies, and you come across a movie with a Chucky with his red hair about to snip off a head of a Jack in the Box, but he doesn't snip it off, and he just waits for you to rent it. That's what I think.
Excellent.
Watch it.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I specifically what I said was this movie almost plays like a reboot of the first because it just does everything so much better. It's obviously a sequel because it's a continuation of the story, but it feels like every element of this movie is just better. I can't remember what I gave Child's Play, so hopefully I don't accidentally rate it lower. But I found that there aren't a lot of parts that drag, and I think that has to do with the runtime. When you push a horror movie to 2 hours, you're going to get a lot of like Halloween kind of had that problem where there's a lot of scenes that are just people doing stuff and Michael Myers observing it from the bushes, basically. But you don't really have that in Chucky because he's one of the main characters.
And Michael Myers doesn't say, "You fucking prick!" Like, he doesn't yell that kind of stuff. Yeah.
No, he says nothing, so he's pretty uninteresting, comparatively anyway. I would say that last year, out of the 4 movies, I think the original Chucky was my favorite, with Freddy Krueger being almost tied for first, but a close second. I think this sets the tone, and I'm going to be comparing the rest of the movies to this, and I think I said that last year too. I mean,
Chucky's verbose, man. You like your verbose villains. You like your monsters to yell shit at people.
I want my monsters to just be a regular ass human. Well, a regular ass serial killer trapped in a doll's body. I give this movie a really solid 3.5 out of 5, really solid. It's obviously, I can't in good mind give it a 4 because it's an 80s horror movie and it's not that deep. It's cinematography wise, it's that makes up probably most of the rating, and it's just entertaining to watch. You could put this on with your friends. You could just watch it on a lazy Saturday afternoon, which I did, and that's my "Hey, did you see this one?" official stamp. So this has been a special weekend episode, special Saturday night episode of "Hey, did you see this one?" I'd like to, as always, thank my co-hosts, and for Kaylin and for Steven, I'm Jason.
For Jason and Kaylin, I am Steven. Ding, 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 ding.
For Steven and Jason, I'm Kellen.
And as always, I have to ask one simple question. Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, Andy, did you see this one, you fucking prick? Let me the fuck out of here!
Yeah. I wish I went before you, because I can't top that.
I saw it.
Hey, did you see this one?
I saw it. I saw it.
Guys, I'm sorry I yell, but he yells a lot. You heard him, right, in the movie?
He does yell a lot in the movie.
I'm the Jack.
You're the Jack?
Yeah.
You're the one getting your head cut off? Oh my god.
I'm also, if I bend and contort just right, it kind of looks like I'm part of the picture.